분명 그대는 나일세 분명 그대는 나일세 나는 미쳐
Welcome to this third program in our series about Edo in Baekje's history. I'm Steve Shields, president of the Royal Asiatic Society, Korea. Today's program features a discussion with Sogang University Professor Emeritus Dr. Kim Young-dok. Dr. Kim, welcome.
Thank you.
In our two previous programs, Dr. Kim explained the basic principles of Edo and how it was used historically to record Korean people's names and places in the absence of a written script for the Korean language. As Dr. Kim explained, sometimes the meaning was used, other times it was the sound value that was used to express a Korean word that had no Chinese equivalent. But there's a catch. We need to know how a given ideogram was pronounced during the Baekje era. Thanks to a Chinese scholar, we're able to do that. This scholar, and we've introduced his book the last couple of programs, has gone through all of the Chinese characters and found the ancient pronunciations, Middle Ages, and modern pronunciations, so it's very easy for us to look up any given character and find the sound value for that. And of course, over 2,000 years or more, sounds and pronunciations have often changed. Today we continue our archaeological excavation, if you will, with a discussion about the Etafunayama tomb and a sword that was discovered in that tomb that comes from the Baekje era. We will also look at some of the other artifacts found in that tomb. In our previous program, we talked about the Inariyama sword, and we find that the two swords come from the same time period of King Gyoda of Baekje. The Inariyama and Etafunayama swords have inscriptions on them that reference King Gyoda of Baekje, who reigned between 455 and 475. So, Dr. Kim, tell us the story of the Etafunayama sword. Where was it found? When was it found? How did they find it? And so on.
Okay, let me show you the map first. Look here. This is Honshu, Japan, and this is Kyushu, and this is Shikoku, and Etafunayama tomb was found right there in the city called Tamana, middle west of Kyushu Island.
Okay.
Yeah, this was 1983 or so that they found out.
1873?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
1873
Yeah,
for the
1873.
Etafunayama sword.
That's right.
Yeah. So that the Etafunayama sword comes from what is Kyushu.
Right.
What about the Inariyama sword? Where
Right
was that
there.
found? Over here,
It's Tokyo Bay
near
here.
Tokyo,
It's about 56 kilometers north of
north
Tokyo.
of Tokyo.
So this just around here.
So also on this map, in the middle we have Nara,
Yeah.
which in ancient times was a contemporary city of these other two
Right.
cities.
Right.
Okay. Now the Inariyama sword was not discovered until 1960 something.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly. Look
Right.
at the other program. But it was made in the 400s. This sword here was made in the 400s,
Right.
about 15 years apart from each other.
That's right.
Right, okay. So, so why did they dig this tomb? What was their motivation? Just curiosity, or was there some reason behind excavating that tomb
Well,
in the 1870s?
I don't know
Okay,
exactly,
okay.
but then there's a good book
Yeah, let's show the book.
that tells all the stories, excavations.
Etafunayama Kobun in
Yeah.
Korean pronunciation, the ancient tomb of Etafunayama. That's a place name.
And that's the tomb. That
And
they
you can
found
see the
there.
tomb, and the trees have overgrown it.
Right.
But they excavated that tomb
Right.
in the 1870s
Yeah.
and discovered the sword and many other artifacts, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So on the sword, we have an inscription,
Right.
100 and some Chinese characters
Right.
that are, what's the word, inscribed or inlaid into the body of the sword.
Right.
What are some of the difficulties in reading those inscriptions?
Oh, it's a sword, probably fabricated around 458 or so. It's
Okay.
long ago, and it's in the tomb so many years, rust and so
A
on.
lot of corrosion on the.
And it was
Yeah.
so hard to read it off.
So the sword was made basically out of iron,
I suppose,
a kind of
Yeah.
iron, so iron would corrode.
right.
And the inscription that's on it, can we read all of those characters clearly?
Most of them, but there's
Most,
some missing.
But there's some that are
Yeah.
missed, some that cannot be deciphered at all because
Right.
it's too corroded. They don't want to do too much to recover those because it could damage further the
Probably,
sword
yeah.
probably. But of the characters that we can read, are they all clearly understood?
Well, that's the point. It's not easy to read off this old inscription, but they made an effort, and they eventually come up with reasonable readings. So far, so good. But then Japanese scholars made the 3 mistakes.
Okay, so 3 characters have been misinterpreted.
That's right.
Okay,
One is for fabrication kung,
okay,
But they-
making, yeah,
but then they read this character as a state name Te, which was wrong,
okay,
which is unusual. But then also second character was sort of talent for Sai, but then they read it as inch sun, and the third one was that's the vital one. That's a character for nothing, mu.
Mu.
But then sometime with one dot in it, it's called the key. So it was very hard, distinguish between the two.
Yeah.
And there are about scores of papers written on this
Mm.
inscription, and half of them, about 10, prefers to read as key. The other half was mu.
Mu. That's one thing that's quite interesting, I think, about Chinese characters. Even a basic character, like the word, the character for large, in Korean pronunciation we say te,
Yeah,
one little dot here makes it te,
that's right.
which means bigger than big, kind of,
Okay.
but another little dot elsewhere makes it dog.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to understand how those kinds of mistakes might be made.
Yeah.
It's also a challenge for the translator who brings to that task preconceived notions. And that's the challenge of translating in the first place is, can I get rid of my preconceived notions
Mhm.
and look at this purely objectively?
That's right.
And so when they translate the characters incorrectly, the meaning changes.
Right.
What is the meaning that changed? How
Well, for-
had that changed?
For example, this name, ki, Japanese, in a half of 10 papers, refers as the mu.
Okay, so in one
But
case
then-
they refer it as mu, which means nothing,
So
or absent.
it's very hard to
Mhm.
tell one from the other,
Yeah.
whether it's wrong or right.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a secret. In 458, King Kero Opekje sent a letter, state letter to Sung Dynasty. It's kept still, It's amazing. This Chinese chronicles carries on all these state letters. So I could tell from 458 there are 2 names that shows up there, and in the state letter sent by King Kero to Sung China in 458. The 2 name is, one is Yo Kwon, the other one is Yo Ki. Of course, Chinese character for ki is different, but then this royal family, and then also this Yo is the Ki is the one of the readings of this character.
Right.
And so my claim is, this Ki written in official statement is the correct name, and from choices between Mu and Ki, I would prefer Ki because of all the other historical, circumstantial, and archaeological evidence point that this law that ruled this area was from Yo's family of royal family of Baekje. So that's the criterion.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the common elements that we find between Etafunayama sword and Inariyama sword? There's several, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean the timing, for example, is during the reign of King Carol, because the name of King Carol shows up both inscriptions.
It's on both swords.
Both called, in Etafunayama, there's about 4 characters missing, but then you can read off from same number of characters. The first initial character and the final character matches with those of inscription in Inariyama.
Okay.
So this points out that this is refers to King Carol, but the point is this this character, as I call it, Inidu, would be Waka Ta Kiro. Kiro is identical with Kero, actually, if you in either way.
Right.
And Hoka is another key word. It's still used in Korean modern days as Koka.
Koka.
Koka means the best,
Okay.
highest.
Highest.
So this means the excellency or the highest, and so on.
I remember when President Pak was in office, we referred to him as Gaka.
Gaka
Is that a different word?
No,
Oh.
that's completely.
Sorry, I've confused the issue.
No,
I
that's
apologize.
completely
Okay,
different
so
Chinese word.
Huaka
Yeah,
and Goka
Yeah.
would be the same,
the identical
Word.
I think.
and Kero being pronounced as Kiri
Yeah, at the time.
at that time.
Probably Kiru,
Maybe,
actually.
yeah.
Kiru.
So in our modern pronunciation, we say Kero,
Yeah.
but our pronunciation now, 1,500 years later, could be changed from the old style.
Yeah.
And I've always said to people, if we could go back in time, most of us who speak modern Korean would probably not be able to understand people of Baekje when they're talking. It'd sound very different than modern Korean.
But here's a catch.
Yeah.
The Chinese character K,
Yep.
and this pronounced as a Kai in Japanese readings. And as I told you, in either way, you just out of K or Kai, you pick one syllable, either Ka or Ki. It's hard to tell which way,
Yeah.
but eventually, it comes up with another source of checking, and it turns out the Kiro is the correct way to read it.
Okay.
So with the epithet in the highest ranking, and then Tai is actually another Korean word for head or great.
The great, yep.
Yeah.
The
So
head
that
person,
means
the
the
chief.
highest
Yep.
great king,
Yep.
Kiro.
Okay.
And it shows up both in description of Etafunayama and also Inariyama. It's so far apart, you see.
Yeah.
One is near Tokyo,
Right.
the other one in Kyushu.
Right.
And also, Etafunayama inscription probably was made around 458.
Okay.
The other one in Inariyama, it's around 471. So
Okay. So
comes
about
apart.
12, 15
Yeah,
years
yeah,
later.
yeah.
But the same time period, though,
Same
when
is- under
Kero
the
was
same
on the
king,
throne. The same
king's
king.
name,
Yep.
King the Great.
King Kero the Great.
Yeah.
Great King Kero.
Yeah.
Yep. But the two swords are not the only inscriptions and information we have about how King Kero's name was written in Edo.
But
There's other records.
other record,
As
but
you
then
mentioned, the state letters
That's
to
right, state
the
letters, but then-
Japanese emperor, or the Chinese emperor.
this sword comes by so rare, you know.
Yeah,
These two of them very rare.
yeah,
First class source material for
Yeah.
historians,
Yeah.
see.
yeah.
So that's why it's so important. And it's buried underground for so
Mm.
many years. Nobody could touch it. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And so obviously this is
And it's discovered completely by accident, really. We didn't know what was in those tombs.
No.
The archaeologists said, let's see.
that's right.
They opened them
that's
up.
right, yeah.
So, the fact that they're such rare objects is that we don't have a lot of written records still from that time period.
Not
Here's
much.
two original written records
Not much.
from that time period.
Mhm.
The state letters to the Sung dynasty,
Uh-huh.
the Sung emperor, we have some Chinese records there.
Yeah.
And so they've recorded all of the official letters that
right.
went back to
Both from Japan and Korea.
Japan was also sending
Oh yeah.
to China.
Oh yeah.
Korea was sending.
It's
Baekje
all
was
kept
sending,
there.
Yep, it's all there. They've got it all. In fact, there's a very interesting book that Dr. Kim showed me earlier that is a collection of all the state letters written to the Chinese emperor. A scholar has collected them all from all the records. And that becomes an important source
Well,
for us as well
definitely.
as we look at all of these things. So this state letter that King Kero wrote to Sung talks about this, I'll call him Mr. Yaw, Lord Yaw,
Yeah.
and there's something that comes up about this particular lord who is in Kyushu, I believe. We talk about the right wise king.
That's right.
And so when we talk about the right, we mean the direction. Wise, we mean wisdom. And king or lord or ruler. In modern English, we use the word king a lot more generally than what would have been used in the ancient times. So Yogi, who we're talking about, was appointed as the right wise king,
That's right.
which in the area now known as Kyushu.
Right.
What do we mean by right?
Well, it's my guess.
Yeah,
This whole military system of Hun, north of
The-
China in
the-
Han Dynasty, they had a sort of territory to the right, and it was ruled by the right wise king. I'm facing toward China.
facing to
Then
yeah,
to the left, they had a military commander or king
yeah,
or lord,
Yeah.
feudal lord,
Yeah.
called left,
left
wise king.
wise king.
So I think same idea was borrowed, by this King Kero
Mhm.
to as a sort of military
Yeah.
defense
Yeah.
regime system, to have these two rear guard instead of front, facing those.
So
Korea.
if King Kero faces towards the east,
To Japan.
towards Japan,
Yeah.
and on the map, King Kero is
Right
is
there.
here.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's over here a little
Yeah.
bit. He's on the western side of the peninsula. If he's looking east,
Yeah,
here's the left and here's the right.
that's right.
So
That's what I think.
Yeah, and so, but we see this left and right coming down through other Korean kingdoms as well. That was a common,
no,
wasn't it?
Not the common.
It wasn't common.
No, it's on one time.
Just the one time.
Yeah.
Really?
No.
Okay. So, but on the sword,
Mm-hmm.
it talks about yogi
Yeah,
as the right one.
not the yogi, but the kiri.
Kiri,
Yeah,
which
the name.
the name.
Given name.
Kiri, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the key
ki
is the syllable,
yeah.
but it matches
Okay,
with the other one.
Yeah.
And also, there's a royal family.
Yeah.
Because as we will come to that part of the story, archaeological
the
evidence.
context of the, yeah.
And then, so in this statement, state letters,
The state letter to
yeah,
Sung.
to
yeah.
Sung, then there's two kings, one to the right,
Right,
to the
and one
left.
to the left.
And
Okay.
the left one is the one in Nara area. And Kero's brother was king there.
Yeah.
He has appointed his brother, you see,
Mhm,
as a leftwise king.
Yeah.
The other one, equally, must be royal family, and they appointed him as a rightwise king
Right-wise
to
king, yeah.
this particular area,
Yeah.
Kumamoto, and well, there's a long story to tell you yet, but then they come from actually Peninsula, these people,
Mhm.
and they're the one probably made a request to the Baekje, please
Please.
send us, somebody who could be our lord, which is at the time I think is prestige, or something.
Yeah.
So I think in all this constellations, most likely King Kero appointed one of the most famous royal family as a lord to rule this Tamana area.
Mhm.
This was 458.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not uncommon to see this same thing happening in Europe.
No?
We have, in many of the early kingdoms, we had viceroys.
Yeah.
And that comes from a French word. We would say in English roy, but it's raw.
Oh,
The king,
roi.
so the assistant king,
Okay.
or the
Oh, really?
the representative of the king.
Oh.
And they had royal rank.
Oh.
Even in the modern era, before India was got its independence from Britain, the person representing the queen or
Yeah,
king
yeah.
was a viceroy
Viceroy.
in Delhi,
I see.
and it was always a member of the
Oh,
royal family.
Roi refers as a king, huh?
Yeah,
Roi
royal.
in,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
French, huh?
yeah. So vice means assistant or
Okay.
second.
I see.
So
got it.
I think the concept is very easy to understand
I
for
see.
Westerners.
I see.
When we look at European history, and Spain had viceroys in the Americas and other colonies and so on and so forth.
The thing is,
So,
Kero himself was king of Japan,
you know,
before
be-
this leftwise king Europe, you see.
yeah. So Kero was in Japan as a viceroy, so to speak. Of
Not
the,
viceroy, just a king.
but there was a king in Baekje, though.
But then he was
yeah.
he was back to succeed his father.
Right. Yeah.
And he
yeah.
became a sort of great king of the great, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
To
yeah,
rule
yeah,
both his brother and the other
the cousins or
royal
whatever.
family,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
to Kyushu.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that
So
explains
it really, yeah.
how this king, or the king the great of Kero in Baekje could, appoint his brother as a leftwise king.
Right.
And
Yep.
his family member as the rightwise
cousin
king,
is
you
the
see.
right one. Yep.
So it just,
Yeah, that's, and honestly, it happens in business today.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Whatever.
The old man appoints his son to be the next CEO, and you keep it in the family.
That's
you,
right.
you-
It's a family
you know,
business.
Yeah, it's family
Okay.
business. In fact, the British royals can talk about their family as the company or the firm. So, what does the sword tell us about this rightwise king?
Well, it doesn't tell much, It just this family is actually, and lots of nice words, He's if you keep this sword, for example, you're blessed from heaven and earth and so on, and so it's right.
Okay. Yeah. So, who's buried at Etafunayama?
Well, you
Who
see,
do we think was buried?
obviously this is Kiri.
Kiri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So,
his name is
so the rightwise king
rightwise king.
is the one who's buried,
Yeah.
and he's a Baekje person,
Baekje royal family.
royal family.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then how long he ruled the area is not known. We don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find interesting about this particular tomb are the artifacts that were discovered inside the tomb, besides the sword. Sword's an important written record.
Yeah.
But there's other information that we can glean from the artifacts
That's right.
that were buried with
You
the
see,
person.
I have a good book on Etafunayama report on excavations. and
This
so
is
on.
the archaeological report.
That's right.
Yeah.
And actually, I have pictures. For example, this
So
pictures
there's
of.
the picture of the tomb and the cover of the book.
That's
Yep.
right.
Okay.
And this the
So in the tomb, when they uncovered it and
Yeah.
dug down in the burial, they found this crown,
crown.
which looks very
Bronze.
much like
Yeah, bronze.
crowns that I've seen in the museums from Shilla and Baekje and
Not Shilla, but in the picture.
those different kinds of
For
things.
example, from this one.
Okay, this one is from where? This one
This
is
Kunsan area.
Kunsan, and this is Etafunayama here on my
Yeah.
right,
And this is Sosan area.
and Sosan.
Yeah, Sosan.
So the Kunsan and Sosan are clearly Baekje territory.
Exactly.
And the designs and the filigrees are remarkably similar.
That's right. Then also look at these shoes here.
And then we also find very common in some Korean royal tombs these golden burial shoes.
Yeah,
You couldn't walk in them, they were clearly burial relics.
among Baekje
Yeah,
regions.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is the brown shoes found in the tomb.
Etafunayama,
And the point is the spike there in the bottom.
the spikes on the bottom.
That shows this is Baekje made ones.
Yeah.
And all the Baekje made has spikes.
I've seen this in the museum in Gongju
You
and
did?
Puyo, I think, similar kinds of burial
Yeah,
shoes
yeah.
with these spikes on the bottom.
Right.
And they're made of bronze covered with gold, or maybe
That's
just
right.
gold, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
What
they're-
about this jewelry here?
Jewelry
This is from the tomb also, but
Tomb also, yeah.
we find these little
jade.
jade
Common shaped jade. Which is
comma
common.
shapes, which is very common.
Very common throughout
to the
Peninsula
peninsula
in Japan.
and in Japan tombs, yeah.
And the other thing is this bronze mirrors. you
Bronze
see,
mirrors.
When they
The-
have sort of copies, not only found in Murion's tomb, the other one in Japan also, with all these relatives,
Yeah.
right there.
And you said something to me as we were talking the other day about somebody presented 100 mirrors to.
Oh, that's another
It's a
interesting story
Yeah.
about this Queen Himiko
mm,
in Kyushu, who ruled about around 234, about 20 years or so, 10 or maybe 20 years.
okay.
And she was a shaman, and probably Chinese knew she would appreciate this bronze mirror, which is part of paraphernalia for her performances, perhaps. And 100 pieces of bronze mirror was a gift from Wei Dynasty.
I've seen many of these kinds of mirrors in museums that range from this size to this size.
Oh, this
There's
one's big.
several sizes.
About 30 centimeters or so,
yeah.
so big.
And we know that when we look at them in the museum, we don't see the opposite side usually. They show us the engraved side, but the opposite side was smooth and polished. So it was a reflective surface. And we know from shamanism that reflective mirror and that kind of thing was important to ward off evil spirits, and lots of mysticism about that.
Interestingly, this Queen Himiko sent a letter to one of the royalty in eastern part of peninsula called Jinhan,
Okay.
and it's kept in the record. She sent a letter, sent a missionary in 233. That's amazing.
Very early.
Yeah, very early.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's always some archaeological, and documentary
Mm.
evidence to
Mm.
make this history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just
actually,
Mm.
to tell you the truth, this Himiko was from one of the province of Baekje
Oh.
in
Mm.
Kunsan area
Mm.
called Socheon, or Himi actually. So that's why descendant of Himiko.
Himiko.
But anyway, he had his brothers, I think, his brother was also invited. Not only his brother, but his another family of the members. And these members and Himiko's group had infighting, and they both perished. See? And this defeated people went down from former area to this Tamana area. That's my theory. That comes later.
It comes later, but the idea that people on the losing side often had to flee for their lives.
That's what I think.
Because they might have been wiped out.
That's why
so
with all this connection, they invited,
they said, it's safe here, come over here.
Yeah. That's my guess anyway.
You've got some other artifacts as well. It looks like
lots of
equipment for horses.
Yes, there's paraphernalia for shamans and military things and so on.
So, just from a style point of view, we have virtually identical items found in tombs in Japan.
Oh, by the way.
And in Baekje. Yes, go ahead.
There was a fortress, Baekje style fort found near Tamana City, and they found the altar site of octagonal, two of them, and same type of octagonal ritual site with a stone, is found also in Kanadara or Hanam City.
In modern Hanam City, which was for a period the capital of Baekje.
They have a holy mountain with all these altars with rock arrangement. So
Stone
same
altars.
Same shape, same size.
Eight-sided, octagonal, eight-sided
and
altars.
in Kanadara or Hanam City, they found what do you call it? The kuka. No, it's nine angle.
A nine-sided?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called.
Yeah. Then also the
octagonal and then
octagonal.
oh dear,
and,
I've forgotten my word.
Yeah.
Yes, but a nine-sided altar. Yeah.
Okay.
Very.
So that's
very
another
strong
story.
connection.
Another story about Idu later on.
And that
maybe.
And that that brings us to kind of time where we want to wrap up with a little bit about Idu.
Okay.
The lifespan of Idu in Korean written records started back in the Baekje times, early Baekje times.
Early
or
Baekje.
maybe, and then
3rd century.
3rd century at the very
Koka.
least,
Koka.
We get the Koka, that word.
From the 3rd century, the Wei Dynasty Chronicle.
Okay.
I found there.
In the Chinese Wei Dynasty.
Of course.
Yes, So, Idu, in the absence of any other written script for Korea, had a long lifespan.
Even after Hangul,
Even after King Sejong invents Hangul, official records were still kept in Chinese characters, and many of those words had to be Idu, because there were Korean words that are pure Korean words.
For example, we have a word for today, 오늘, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, 그제 and so on. But for tomorrow, it's a Chinese word original. So I've been wondering why, and I had to resort to this record left by Chinese ambassador to Korea in Sung Dynasty, and in that book I found the word for the tomorrow in Korean, pure Korean, 하재.
하재.
That's one example.
We use in Korean 어제
어제, 그제.
for yesterday. 그제, day
Yeah.
before yesterday. Is that all pure Korean words then?
So the 내일 is the one commonly used today for tomorrow.
Right.
But then I found out from Idu writing,
It's
that the 하재
하재.
for tomorrow.
For tomorrow.
So we had 하재. Same way with the grandchild and so on. And there's a precious source for finding our own Korean word in writing. So
And that's one thing that I think younger generations today don't realize, that not all Korean words come from Chinese characters, just like not all Latin words provide all the vocabulary for English and French. So there's original Korean, pure Korean, I call it,
Of course.
that have no Chinese characters to them. It was a word that was part of the language here. But in the government offices then, they would have developed a vocabulary for government common words that they would use in discussing government. What
That's
happened to
right.
all those words?
That's a very, in my mind, very sad story. Up until the end of Joseon Dynasty, I mean, you had to carry on as a government official with the people, and they have all the terminology on the official works. It's all written in Ido way, but it's been all lost because when Japan occupied it and sort of Japanese terminology took over.
So they just replaced all the Korean with
Exactly,
Japanese
exactly.
terminology. And then in the modern era of Korea, we've simply brought that into
Exactly.
our common use today. So we've lost the pure Korean
But
words
then
for
to
those
find
terms.
the old traditional words,
Mm,
you have to resort to Ido, not only in common word, but also in history.
In history.
Not
yeah.
only that,
Yep.
in Manyosho, for example, Japanese anthology of Japanese lyric songs of
Lyric songs.
6th and 7th century,
Okay.
around 4,500 and so on. And for example, first song was supposed to be written by this Yuraku Tenno, Yuraku. And I found half of them are more or less picture words,
It's Idu.
Ido, in Ido way.
Yeah. Mm.
So it's been only 50 years or so that the royal family was pictured in Japan.
Yeah.
So they must have been using the
Using their own
picture
language.
words.
Yeah. Well, I think
Example,
it's important to remember that even though King Sejong created Hangul in the 1400s, it was never widely used. The government officials didn't like it. They were opposed to it. After King Sejong died, it just pretty much was just a footnote to his reign. And it wasn't until the 1880s when Korea opened up to foreign connections. We had lots of educators, missionaries mostly come to Korea. They're the ones that really hooked up with Hangul, I think, and made it as the popular written language that it is today. They were primarily responsible for pushing that because they needed a way to teach the Bible, and the common people couldn't read Chinese characters. They didn't have the ability or the access to the education. Hangul, with originally 28 letters, modern day 24 letters, 24, something like that. It's a very straightforward phonetic writing system.
Right.
And the missionaries translated the Bible using Hangul as the printed form of the Bible. Horace Underwood, who was one of the founders of Royal Asiatic Society Korea, wrote one of the very first dictionaries to help other missionaries learn how to read and write Hangul. So Idu has a much longer history as a written language system for Korea than anything else.
Well,
It's been a very important part of how we can understand any records that we might find.
finally, I would like to add one word.
Okay.
King Kero was formerly the king of Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and his family name's Yo, and he's the first king that carries this family name Yo.
Oh.
Previous, it was the family of Jin, and for example, the founder king of Wa Japan was the family name Jin. You see, his two sons also the kings for 3 generations, and there was a change of the family name from Jin to Yo. And it so happens that the Kero, as well as Kuniki or the Yuraku, was brothers, you see. and their mother was a granddaughter of the founder king of Japan. And then also their real grandfather was Chunji, or the king of Baekje. So they have a family background, both.
Both.
So that's why how this your family could become the king of Japan. Also, so that's why when the king came to Japan, the Baekje to become the king the great, and command his own brother in Japan, and send the royal family. Not only then another one from Inariyama in Tokyo area. So all these three important area of Japan was under the control of the same great king.
The same king, and
For this, all this was found thanks to this Idu.
because of Edu, we understand all this history. Yep. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your time,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Kim. We hope that you will enjoy our discussion today, and that we'll see you again in the near future. Have a good day. Thank you.
나는 미처 몰랐네. 나는 미처 몰랐네.